Yeah, bud.
These just turn.
They do turn.
And this turn.
That's right. Hey friends, it's time for a trip report. So, we just got back from our most recent Walt Disney World vacation. We were there the first week of November. We got to see the Christmas decor go up. We were in the parks starting November 2nd. So the big tree was already up in Magic Kingdom. It was fully transformed into Christmas, and it was amazing. For a lot of our pictures, though, I wanted them to be a little more timeless, and so we opted not to have a lot of Christmas outfits or Christmas background pictures, although I did capture a few videos and pictures, so I'm sure I will be sharing those at some point. But as far as our family trip, we opted for a more timeless look. We spent the first park day in Magic Kingdom. We spent the second day in Animal Kingdom, and our final day was in Epcot. We live about 6 hours from Disney, so we choose to drive, and since we now live only 6 hours, we live a bit closer than we used to, we decided to try this trip in one day. So a one-day road trip down there. We left very early in the morning. We made stops as necessary. And the kids did really well. I was expecting a lot more meltdowns than we had, but we started early enough in the day that they slept for the first good part of it. Once we took our first break, they were ready for breakfast. We stopped at a McDonald's, got out and had a breakfast. We got back in the car and were able to do minimal stops just to get out and let everybody stretch. We do stop approximately every 2 hours. If you don't know, that is the AAP's guideline for children riding in cars, especially while they're in car seats. It's really a good guideline for anybody, but especially for young kids in the car seats. And I think the guideline is officially like 2 to 3 hours, so we try not to stretch it more than 3. I don't think that we really ever have anyway. We sometimes end up stopping more frequently than every 2 hours, just so we can all get out and move around and stretch for a little bit, get a snack, maybe a bathroom break. It makes the day a little bit longer, but ultimately it's better for everyone that we've gotten that stretch in. So that's our road trip strategy, and they both have their road trip survival bags with their soft toys and books and the Imagine Ink Color Wonder style paper where they can color on there, and I don't have to worry about it getting on them, on the clothes, on the car seat, anything like that. And so that's how we do our road trips. This time we stayed at All-Star Sports, and this was a first for us. We actually were scheduled there a few years ago, but because of the resort closures, it wasn't open, and we got upgraded to Caribbean Beach. So we circled back around to All-Star Sports, and we did get a refurbished room. The whole resort right now, the All-Star Sports portion, is under construction. Rooms are still being renovated. The grounds are still being updated. And while that didn't personally impact us, I do have friends that stayed the week before who said that the construction was really bothersome to them. But we weren't close to that construction. We were in Building 10, which was the touchdown area, the football side of the resort. We were right in between two pools. The Surf's Up pool where the main building is, and the baseball pool with Goofy in the center pitching. And so we spent time at both pools. They were both great. The Surf's Up pool is where the kiddie area is. So over there's a kiddie pool that the kids can play in that's only a few inches deep. They had a great time over there, and my husband spent some time in the big pool with the kids. They did have life vests there that you could use, and these are certified life vests. These aren't floaties, and they have different sizes, so as long as they're available you can use them for your kids. My husband used to be a lifeguard, so he spent some time with our toddler doing some swim lessons and getting them really comfortable in the water. And as you can imagine, they both loved the pool. And like I always tell my clients, don't be surprised if you come home and your kids say their favorite part was the pool, especially if they're not used to being in one at home. Our son every day asked to go to the pool, and we tried to go as much as we could because we do take breaks throughout the day. So let's get back into our trip. We arrived the first day, and we got to have a late lunch / early dinner in our food court, and that night we just opted for some basic food. We got chicken fingers and a cheeseburger. cheeseburger, 2 cheeseburgers and some chicken fingers, and we split that all around because we had just eaten not terribly long before, but we wanted to make sure the kids were full for bed because we had a big day ahead of us. And all of that was good. My husband had the bases loaded burger and I had a few bites. It was really good. It was definitely a good burger. The fries were top notch. The chicken fingers were good. Spoiler alert, the cheeseburger, the kids' cheeseburger was so good that my son asked for it every day. And I'm pretty sure that at least once every day he had a cheeseburger and french fries. But he ate all of it every time, so I'm not complaining. We spent a couple hours at the pool, got them nice and worn out. They got to exercise after being in the car all day, so it worked out great for us. We had a ground floor room, which was good because we had a stroller and the toddlers, so it just made everything easier. We did rent a stroller through Scooter Bug. So Scooter Bug does wheelchair and stroller rentals. Scooter Bug is Disney's official partner for wheelchairs and strollers, so they can be dropped off at Bell Services without you being there. So we had our stroller dropped off earlier in the day since we weren't sure exactly what time we would arrive. I wanted it to be there whenever we did get there, so I had them scheduled for a drop-off at noon. The earliest we possibly could have arrived was 1 p.m. We actually ended up arriving around 3 that day. So after we had our dinner and explored the resort a bit, I went to go pick up our stroller. Bell Services said they didn't have it at first, which was a little concerning, but I called Scooter Bug and they said, no, it was definitely delivered, so please go back and check again. And they gave me the order number to check with, and I'm not really sure where the mix-up happened, but they did end up having the stroller, so we were able to pick it up. And we kept it with us for the rest of the trip, and at the end of the trip, we just dropped it back off with Bell Services, and there was a sign-in and a sign-out sheet, and it was a really smooth process. I definitely recommend using that. Since we always have our car at the parks, we opt to use that instead of relying on Disney transportation. It's just easier for us right now with 2 littles. We get to keep them in a normal environment in their car seats, and we have all the space that we need. We can leave whenever we want without having to wait in lines for the most part. So back to Magic Kingdom. This is the only park where you can't park at the theme park. So with Magic Kingdom, you actually end up parking at the Transportation and Ticket Center, or is it Ticket and Transportation Center? I always get the words mixed up, but it's the TTC. So you can park there and then choose to take either the monorail or the boats, the ferry boats, into Magic Kingdom. And while the monorail is my favorite form of transportation out of the 2, we somehow always end up on a ferry boat. The kids like it. I think it's secretly my husband's favorite. And you can load a lot more people at one time on the ferry boats. So it's just become a tradition that we enter Magic Kingdom through the ferry boats. And you do get a really nice view of the castle when you do that. Plus, you don't have to fold up your stroller. You don't have to do that on the monorail either, but on buses, you do always have to fold it up to get on, which can be kind of a hassle. Through security, we get through the turnstiles and we head into Magic Kingdom, and the first thing we see is the gorgeous Christmas tree. So it's in full Christmas swing. We head down Main Street. We stop for a photo because we do have Memory Maker, and if you have Memory Maker for your trip, I do recommend stopping for photographers pretty much anytime you see them. This is the only one that we had a bit of a wait for, but it was important to me to get a picture in front of the castle, and I knew the lines were only going to get longer. That day, the extra resort guest time started at 8:30, but when we got there, they were already letting guests in, and we walked through at 8:20, and the line was steadily moving. So we went in and had that picture, and then we went straight over to Fantasyland. So we were going to start with Peter Pan, but we already had a bit of a longer wait than I wanted to do since they had started letting people in early. And my kids aren't super familiar with Peter Pan. So while it has been a tradition for many years to start our trip in Peter Pan, we made the switch to Winnie the Pooh. It had basically no wait, and my kids both love Pooh. So it just made sense for us to do that. We did use Genie Plus, and it was the most helpful this day in Magic Kingdom. We did have lightning lane access to Seven Dwarfs. My son hit a new height limit for the rides, so that was our test to see if he was ready to do these bigger rides. So we did Seven Dwarfs, and we used Rider Swap on it since my daughter is not able to ride that yet, and he didn't like it. He liked the slow parts where we got to see the cave with the digging and the mining, but the parts where it went fast, he was genuinely scared. So we didn't make him do it again, and we didn't do any other big rides this time. So I don't want to go through every day step by step because that will be really monotonous. If you have any questions about how the park went that I'm not answering, just comment them below and I'll be happy to let you know how everything was. But Magic Kingdom went great. Genie Plus worked great there. We got so much stuff done, and we had lunch at the Crystal Palace with Pooh and friends. That was a little interesting as well. I thought that he would love being in there with those characters. I mean, my kids love Pooh. He was really excited to meet Piglet. He did great with Piglet, but he didn't want to see Tigger, and he was only iffy with Eeyore. So we actually didn't even stay to meet Tigger and Pooh because he was getting so worked up about Tigger getting closer and closer to our table. And since we had already finished our food, we just went ahead and left. So we got to see Eeyore and Piglet up close, and we did not see Tigger and Pooh, but we did get the little plaque or the little card that has all the signatures on it, and that was one of our better meals of the trip. It was really good food, and I had gotten a late breakfast reservation. It was around 10:30, which meant we got breakfast food and we were there for the lunch turnover, so we also got the lunch food. But since we had scheduled a breakfast, we only had to pay breakfast pricing, so there's a little extra tip for you. They do have the churro Mickey waffles there right now, and they were not as good as I was wanting them to be, but also keep in mind we were at the end of breakfast, so there is a possibility that if they had been earlier in the day or if it had been a fresh batch, then maybe I would have liked them better. They were good, but they weren't great. So I'll just say that. So we left Crystal Palace. I think we maybe did 1 or 2 more rides and then took our break for the day. We went back to the room. We went to the pool. We had a nap. And later that night, my son and I did go back, but my husband and my daughter stayed in the room. We didn't want to get her back out. My son and I had a little night to ourselves. We spent it in Tomorrowland. So we went to do Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor, and while we were inside, a downpour happened that was really supposed to happen earlier in the day, so I thought we had missed it, but we hadn't, and we were there without a stroller since it was just me and him and only for a little bit. I did not have our full bags with us, so we did not have our rain gear, but Tomorrowland is a great place to get caught because almost everything is inside over there. So while you may have to get a little wet hopping from place to place, you're not gonna have to stand out and get drenched. So we did the Laugh Floor, we went back and did Buzz again, which is his favorite ride. We did the People Mover. I think that's all we did there. We didn't make it over to the Carousel of Progress. We did get some snacks. I got the cream cheese pretzel that everyone raves about, and I guess I thought it was like a savory pretzel, but it's actually a sweet pretzel. It's the sweet cream cheese, and that's not my favorite. And while I did enjoy it, I wouldn't get it again. But if you like that type of thing, then go for it. It wasn't bad by any means, just not my preference. I wanted a savory pretzel. We also had a churro. We did catch the fireworks show. I don't even want to call it a fireworks show anymore. It's just a nighttime spectacular because it's not just fireworks. The projections really make that show. We ended up watching it on Main Street because I was not somebody that wanted to stake out a seat for the show. I mean, we got there around 5:30 and people were claiming their spots, and this show didn't start until 8:15. And I'm just not gonna do that. Like, I wanna do things during those hours. I don't wanna just sit and wait on the show to happen. We ended up on Main Street. We were doing a little shopping in the stores because it was still drizzling a little bit, and we had done the buses. We did not drive there since it was just the 2 of us. So I was trying to schedule our bus time so that we wouldn't have a really long wait. So the show started, we went back out to Main Street, and we could see a really good amount. I mean, we couldn't see the very bottom of the castle because there was, of course, hundreds of people in front of us, but we could see most of the castle. And now the projections aren't just on the castle, they're all through Main Street. And that was really magical. My son loved it. We got about 2/3 through the show, and he said, "It's over!" and was ready to go home, even though we hadn't actually made it to the finale. But that worked out great because we made our way back to the buses before there was any kind of line, and I think we were back in our room by 9 o'clock, so it worked out really well. The next day, we spent in Animal Kingdom. Animal Kingdom is a very different park from Magic Kingdom, and while the kids definitely liked Magic Kingdom, you can tell that it's a little overwhelming. There are so many things to see, there are so many sounds, there are so many people, it's very hustle and bustle, it can be overwhelming. So they love Animal Kingdom. A lot of kids end up liking Animal Kingdom better for all those reasons. It's a more chill park. It encourages you to stop and explore and not just be rushing from ride to ride. Now, don't get me wrong, we did ride rides, but we also did the Wilderness Explorer booklet. So anytime you see that WE Wilderness Explorer sign, you can stop and you get a sticker for your booklet and you learn interesting new facts from the guides. And these are like really in-depth things. You learn about biology and ecology and animal footprints, and it's just really interesting, and they make it engaging for all ages. My son was 3, and he was typically one of the younger ones doing it because the booklet is really in-depth. I mean, it's a whole workbook that you can fill in the answers to the questions, you can do searches, you can do different things. So I highly recommend that, and it's free to participate. You just pick it up when at one of the booths that has the booklets. We picked ours up in Pandora. That's where we started our day, and we did not do Flight of Passage because everybody is going to Flight of Passage, but nobody is going to Navi River Journey. So that's where we went, and we had about a 10-minute wait. But ultimately, that was just walking through the queue, and then we walked on the ride, and they loved it. It really is an underrated water ride, in my opinion. It is absolutely gorgeous. The music is really nice. It is relaxing, and if it's hot outside, it's cool in there. So it's just a nice little ride to go on. Later in the day, it had a 70-minute wait, and Flight of Passage had a 75-minute wait. So if this is one that you're wanting to do and you're not using Genie Plus, then I would say make that your first stop of the day, the Navi River Journey. We then left the continent of Pandora and headed over to Africa to do the Kilimanjaro Safari, which is my son's favorite thing in that park because you're up close and personal with all of those animals. We also spent some time in Dino Land. The play area over there is fantastic. I wish we'd had more time to spend in there, but it didn't line up great when we were over there. So we were having that, and then we had a lounge reservation, or we were on the walk-up list for the lounge. So it was time for us to go inside and sit in the air conditioning for a while. So Nomad Lounge has a small bites menu that shares a kitchen with Tiffins. So if you can't get into Tiffins, or like us, it's not on our radar right now with little kids, you absolutely can take little kids there. It's just not something we personally wanted to do, was have another sit-down meal that day. So you can join the walk-up list for Nomad Lounge. You can order small bites there, so you get things that are on the Tiffin's menu, and then there's also a full drink menu, and they have lots of different options, even for the kids, non-alcoholic fun drinks that you can have. It's not just a bar, so don't get that mixed up and think, well, I can't go in there because I don't want to go to the bar. It's not just a bar, it's a mini Tiffin's, if you will. So we had a good time in there. My daughter slept through most of that in her stroller, and once we left there, we went to the baby care center, and I cannot recommend the baby care centers enough. Like, I never really used them with my son because with two adults and one kid, it just didn't seem as necessary. And to be honest, I didn't think of going in there because he was older than a year. And I guess in my head, I thought, well, baby care center is for little babies. But no, this is for, and toddlers as well, I would say, qualify to go in here. Pretty much if you're in diapers, you qualify. And even if you're not, if you're still a little kid, I don't think they're turning you away. But we went in there, it had a nice lounge, it had little kid-sized tables, so we let the kids have a snack in there. Like I said, my daughter had just woken up, so I went in to change her and gave the kids a snack. They got to watch a little bit of Beauty and the Beast. We got to be in the air conditioning for a little bit longer. Everything you could need in there for babies. They had medicine, they had diapers, they had wipes, they had snacks, they had pouches, they had formula, they had anything that you could need. So highly recommend going into those in all the parks. We really only used it at Animal Kingdom. We just didn't need it the Magic Kingdom day, and we maybe could have used it during Epcot, but we cut that day really short because we were all exhausted by the end of our trip. Other than the safari, my kids' next favorite thing is Rafiki's Planet Watch. You take a train over there, there's a petting zoo, and it's one where the animals really are the focus, and they are really cognizant of not petting them on the head or, feeding them by hand. They don't want you to do any of that, but you are able to be in there with them and experience them in their habitats. We saw pigs and cows and goats, lots of different animals, and they have brushes there for you where you can brush their backs, shoulders down. So they had a really great time there, and there's a little scavenger hunt area too that is always fun, and we got to find a secret animal. I'll have a reel out on that soon, but we've done that a few times now, and there's always something new to find and see and explore in Animal Kingdom. Spent our last day in Epcot, and this was at the end of our trip, but it is my favorite park. So this day we were not getting up necessarily as early as we had been because I was using Genie Plus this day. So worst case scenario, we would have just skipped some things if we didn't make it in time. I used Genie Plus to get Lightning Lane entry into Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. And so at 7 a.m. I logged on and I got that for all of us, and we were able to ride that at around 9:30. So we arrived in the park, I think around 8:30. It opened at 8, but this day we were not necessarily trying to beat all the crowds. Like I said, it was the end of our trip, and I didn't want to push the kids too hard. So we got there around 8:30, and we went straight into the World Showcase to go to Norway so that we could try to do Frozen. It had a 35-minute wait time posted, but I do not think we waited that long. I think we might have waited 20 minutes max. There was a little bit of a wait, but I don't think it was 35 minutes. It wasn't very long, but I'm glad we rode it first thing in the morning because that ride does get a crazy long line. So we did that one. We backtracked to Mexico and did the Three Caballeros, and then we looped around the outside of World Showcase to head to France, and we got to do Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. It was very fun. The kids loved that we were in the kitchen and cooking and kind of at the eye level of the rat. My daughter was dancing around to the songs in there and in Frozen. So those were two of their favorite things in Epcot, which are harder to get rides. So if you are going to Epcot, I do recommend having Genie Plus for those, and or rope dropping the park so that you can get there before the lines get outrageous. After we got off of Remy's, the kids were hungry, so we had some crepes there in France. We did a butter and sugar crepe, and we did a ham and cheese galette, which is a buckwheat crepe. It's the savory version, and while it was good, I think we all preferred the butter and sugar. I would definitely be getting those again next time we are in Epcot. So after that, we headed back up into the front of the park. So we didn't spend any more time in World Showcase that day. We hit the other things that the kids would like. We went to the Imagination Pavilion. We saw some characters in there. We did the rides. We went to the land and the seas. And then we headed out for the day. It was around 2 p.m. and we just called it done for the day. It was the end of our trip. The kids were exhausted. And since everyone in my room was asleep except for me, I went back down to the All-Star Sports cafe. No, not cafe. food court, and I got a really good meal. I had salmon with potatoes and green beans, and it was one of my best meals of the trip. But the standout was that I got a 50th anniversary cheesecake. I expected it to be good, but it was amazing. It was my favorite thing I ate during the whole trip. It was so good that I got it again the next morning for breakfast because we were leaving out that day. I had originally scheduled a breakfast at Steakhouse 71 over at the Contemporary, but just based on how tired the kids were and needing to get everything packed and out of the room, I made a last-minute decision to cancel that reservation and instead just have breakfast at our resort because we actually had not eaten any breakfast there. So that morning after everything was packed, I did a mobile order for our breakfast, and we went down and had a breakfast in PJs at the All-Star Sports Food Court. And believe it or not, that ended up being my favorite meal of the trip. Yes, the salmon the night before was really good, but I got the plant-based frittatas that morning, and they were Mickey-shaped, which was so cute. I have not seen Mickey-shaped eggs before, and while these were plant-based and not a traditional egg, still, I haven't seen, I've seen Mickey waffles and Mickey desserts and lots of Mickey things, but I hadn't seen this Mickey-shaped food yet, so that was fun to eat. The kids had Mickey waffles. We also just had a regular breakfast bounty platter, and we took our time having that breakfast. We got a cookie to go. I got my cheesecake again since we were leaving out that day, and I wanted to make sure that I got to eat it again because it was my favorite. I typically don't double dip like that into foods. Like, I like to try new things, but this one was so good, I had to have it twice. And if you are in the All-Star Resorts or anywhere that has this cheesecake, I definitely recommend having it. So make sure to check out my stories as I post about these things and post pictures of all of this. Make sure to comment below if you have any questions about things that I didn't cover or want me to go more in depth about something. I'd love to let you know more about the trip, but I don't want to keep you here all day. So I'll see you real soon. Toodles.